What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Nintendo and their variable pricing has struck again. This time, just confusing the internet completely. People going back and forth around what's now being a split between digital and physical when it comes to the pricing structure. And we're going to go over all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a certain definitive edition that's popped up online and had everyone a bit shocked there, but then they realized, oh yeah, it's been 3.5 years since this came out. Let's see what else Sega can do with this title. And we have Sony, as they've liked to go back and do remakes and remasters that don't really make a lot of sense because they're pretty recent with the source material. Well, there's one franchise in particular that's now popped up again, this from a pitch that was turned down by Sony, but I think it's about time they revisited this one. All of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with Tomodachi Life Living the Dream. Nintendo released an overview video for it, just again, taking a look at different aspects and features of the game. But then they announced a demo. So the game will be out here in a few weeks. It's releasing April 16th, but the demo, it's kind of like a welcome for the town and stuff you set up, as they've dubbed it. It's really just, hey, let's get things set up, and then your Miis and your town, your save data, will transfer over to the full game. But what's really funny about this is people have been trying the demo out, and they've realized, wow, there's really no filter at all for this game, and you'll have like synthesized voices that'll read back anything you're typing up, and it really does read anything. Like, so people are kind of laughing and joking about it online, but there are certain examples that I guess the original one was kind of like that back on the 3DS, but still though, it is something that I almost wonder if Nintendo's just going to be viewing this as, oh, we trusted the internet too much again. I don't know if they'll really do much to censor or anything like that. Maybe they'll just leave it and say, hey, you guys are the ones doing it. We just provide the Miis. Also, we have Mega Man Star Force Legacy Collection that is releasing tomorrow. And I was curious about this because I don't really have a lot of experience with the games in this collection, but we did have the reviews go live here. And it's kind of across the board for the different platforms. The PlayStation 5 and then the Switch were the two leading platforms for reviews. The PS5 sitting at a 74 on 14 reviews, and the Switch sitting at an 80 on 12 reviews. PC with 6 reviews at a 76. And when I was going through all the different reviews and I was reading some of them, it seems that the collection itself is actually quite good, like Capcom structuring and putting them all together. A lot of the criticisms came around the games themselves, how they've aged, or really how they even were on release, back in the day. But this is, again, a collection. I really just don't have a lot of experience with these titles. So as someone who's a big fan of Mega Man, I'm more like the platforming Mega Man fan, not necessarily, although Battle Network was pretty cool too, but this is kind of an era that I sort of missed out on, so I wanted to get it for that fact, try it out again and pick it up physically and again add it to the collection. So I'll at least be picking it up tomorrow, but let me know what you think about the Mega Man Star Force Legacy Collection and if you'll be picking it up as well. Oh, and we should be just a few days away from Sony announcing PlayStation Plus Essential Tier for April, and now we have at least one of the big games that's leaked out here through D-Labs we can see, and that is Lords of the Fallen, not to be confused with Lords of the Fallen from years ago. And well, okay, so this Lords of the Fallen, it had come out, and then they did a big 2.0 level update for it, and it's kind of like a big re-release for them. But now going into the service, of course, giving people more of a chance to check this game out. And D-Lab says that this should be live to claim starting April 7th, running all the way until May 5th. We'd still expect another, at least 2 games, maybe 3 if we're lucky, but definitely another 2 games. This one, though, Lords of the Fallen, seems to be the big headliner game, so we'll wait to see what else Sony has to pair up with it, again, here in a few days. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo and them taking variable pricing to the next level. Now, it's actually going to depend if you're looking at the digital or the physical edition for different Switch 2 games in the future. Now, we have this that was released over on Nintendo's website, where they say, beginning in May 2026 and starting with pre-orders for Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, new Nintendo published digital titles exclusive to Nintendo Switch 2 will have an MSRP that is different from physical versions. Nintendo games offer the same experiences, whether in packaged or digital format, and this change simply reflects the different costs associated with producing and distributing each format and offers players more choice in how they can buy and play Nintendo games. As always, retail partners set their own prices for physical and digital games, and pricing for each title may vary. So I will tell you, we'll talk more about the retail and the digital stuff later on, but I can tell you I don't think retailers are very happy with this, because if you go and take a look at Yoshi and the Mysterious Book on Nintendo's website now, it's pretty convenient to jump between physical or digital, see the price differences. It's $60 digitally, it's $70 physically, and I will say I thought this was going to be a $60 game just based on how it was priced in different regions, as we were getting pre-order details and stuff outside of the US, and we were kind of looking at saying, okay, that's typically the conversion for a game that is a bit cheaper than the standard $70 that we've seen at retail here. And this has been viewed completely differently depending on, well, I mean, if you're a digital first gamer, you're probably like, oh, cool, that means that the digital games will just be cheaper for me versus the physical counterpart. But the question comes up now, and it's almost like if you pour like the glass of milk, right? Half full versus half empty. Okay, does this mean that digital games got cheaper, or does this mean physical games got more expensive? And to be honest, right now, we really don't know. And the reason for that is because we have one example that's already kind of in that fringe area of, oh, this might have been a $6 game. I don't know. Was it a $70 game to start? So we just need more games to undergo this variable pricing, digital versus physical. So for example, Fire Emblem, that's coming up at some point here, I assume this year. And if I had asked you, okay, before any of this was public, would you say it's a $70 game? Because I think most people were thinking, yeah, it's $70 physically and digitally. So we'll know a lot with something like Fire Emblem, because if it's 70 physically, 60 digitally, I'll go, hey, you know what? Yeah, I guess digital games are just getting cheaper now from that. But on the other hand, if it's 70 digitally and 80 physically, I'll go, hold on a minute. This kind of feels like physical games actually got a bit more expensive. And I will say, I do believe digital counterparts of these games should actually be cheaper, because there's less that goes into delivering it to you, right? Like with the whole thing with retail, especially with Nintendo and these cartridges where they are, for the most part, I know the whole thing with Pocopia is a little strange because it's Game Keycard, but it's also the Pokemon Company, and Nintendo's publishing it in certain regions. But that aside, any of these first-party Nintendo games, they are putting the game on the cartridge. And if it's a 10 gigabyte game, it doesn't matter. It's getting the 64 gigabyte cartridge treatment. And as we see with DRAM and other components, even the cartridges, the components that go into that, it's not getting cheaper right now. So to me, it makes sense. Digital, yeah, that should just be cheaper for customers, but it brings into question the whole thing back and forth when it comes to retailers who don't necessarily want to be undercut by the company who's also providing them the games and setting the MSRP. Now, we do have a statement here from Nintendo to IGN, just trying to clear a lot of this up, where they say, the cost of physical games is not going up. This means that when Nintendo sells digital versions of Nintendo-published games exclusive to Nintendo Switch 2 to consumers in the US, those prices will have an MSRP that is lower than their physical counterparts. Retail partners set their own price for physical and digital games. Pricing may vary. Each title may vary. Sure, okay, great. The thing with this, though, is it still doesn't necessarily answer the question. So, like physical games now, this is not going back and applying this retroactively, okay? But if this had been in effect for Mario Kart World, like, is that $80 game, is that 80 digitally and 90 physically? These are the questions we have right now. If a big 3D Zelda game comes out that's taken Nintendo, 5 years to create behind the scenes with their top talent, and it's gonna at least test the high mark of their pricing structure, is that 80 digitally and 90 physically, or is it 80 physically and 70 digitally? Again, we just need more examples to be able to figure out exactly what this really is outside of the PR spin and stuff that's obviously going to be placed on this. But now, moving aside from that, there is the whole thing around digital and the digital adoption rate, because I do think that's going to accelerate now. I mean, if you think about it this way, it's cheaper and it's more convenient. So before it was like, okay, it's convenient, but there are drawbacks to maybe ownership of a game, having it on the cartridge, not even having to download it necessarily, and it's the same price. Like, yeah, I'd like to have the cartridge, the case, the cover art, maybe any extras that come inside the package, the reverse cover, whatever else, right? it all lined up, at least from the financial side. It's all the same price. Now it's not. Now there is incentive because it's $10 cheaper. And that goes a long way, especially right now where it's not exactly like everyone's buying up everything, money's flying all over the place. No, people are definitely making some pretty serious decisions outside of gaming, and cost of living, everything is playing into this to where it's $10 cheaper. I don't have to drive out and use gas to get this thing, or even pay shipping to have it brought in. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and pick it up digitally. And I do wonder about the retail relations with Nintendo, because I will tell you, back in 2015 or 2016, this was a legitimate concern that had been brought up at different stores and wholesalers that I was working with. The idea that because digital is just the default now in these systems. I mean, at that time, the PS4 and the Xbox One launched just a couple years prior with digital storefronts built in. Not the case, by the way, really with the 360 and the PS3. They weren't designed from release day to be able to accommodate full, physical game downloads for AAA titles or anything. But the PS4 and the Xbox One were different. And that was brought up a couple of times. It's only a matter of time until these platform holders, these publishers, start undercutting us. We have one price for physical, but it's definitely cheaper and more cost effective for them on the digital side, and it's worth them enticing people into buying digital, so they're eventually going to make it cheaper, and we're just going to really struggle selling these games at a higher price. So I don't know if this is something that's going to... I assume Walmart, Target, Best Buy, they're still going to sell these games because they typically drive traffic to stores. But I do wonder about the direction now for Nintendo's books and where digital is going to sit, because I do feel like it's going to really start to take over here, and that is going to bring up questions around maybe even Nintendo's next system. I mean, we're still way off, I know. But 10 years from now, will there be a digital-only Switch 3 or something? I mean, probably, and that's kind of where we're sitting now with all this. But here's the thing, we need more examples, because right now it's just a lot of speculation since it's really just for Yoshi. We got to see what happens with something like Fire Emblem, the next big 3D Mario, the next big 3D Zelda, or even Pokemon Wind and Waves. What's going to happen there? 70-80 or 60-70? Let me know down in the comments which way you think that's going to go. Next up, let's talk about a certain definitive edition that just randomly popped up online because, yes, it was discovered through a ratings board. And the discourse online around this was quite funny, because on one hand, people went, what is a definitive edition for this game that just came out? And they're like, oh, wait. Then they had the realization that we're actually getting older because this game came out 3.5 years ago. Time, man, I'm telling you, time just... it flows differently now, doesn't it? But we can see this. This is over on Gamatsu. They say the Game Rating and Administration Committee of Korea has rated the unannounced Sonic Frontiers Definitive Edition. They have it highlighted here below in a screen grab. And the game came out November 8th, 2022. All right, so again, almost 3.5 years ago. Sega does this, though. This isn't new or shocking necessarily. Even Sonic, the Sonic franchise has done this. Gamatsu points out Sonic Origins, Sonic Mania. But this is funny because Sonic Frontiers, all right, so it had the pop-in issue. We all know that. It was a meme online. People laughed about it. You know, the definitive edition could actually be kind of funny if they fixed that. All of a sudden, you'd have pop-in 10 feet in front of you. The obvious thing, though, is most likely there would be a Switch 2 edition for this game, where they will do at least some updates and upgrades for the visuals, frame rate, that kind of stuff. But even adding in additional content, patches, being able to at least put this on the cartridge or the game key card will say, hey, now you can just charge more for physical, apparently. But if maybe game key card or something, we'll see. But even with that in mind, PS5 and Xbox Series, PC, I assume Sega is going to work to resell this thing again. And I mean, just in time, this rating for the Xbox show that's happening today. So maybe that's something else. All of a sudden, we get through the Stranger Than Heaven, and oh yeah, here's Sonic Frontiers, a definitive edition with less pop-in. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Sony and remakes. Something dropped online yesterday that really had people talking about the idea of a Jak and Daxter remake. And of course, Sony, they do remakes, they do director's cuts, they do definitive editions, but it's not necessarily the ones that people are always calling for online that you see. And there are, of course, questions around how well would something like this actually sell? You know, when you go really far back, or you look at things like Japan Studios, who made games that people online seem to like, but that just wasn't able to really sell that well. Most of the times it struggled, and they probably lost money on a lot of those projects that people remember very fondly. But check this out. We can see this shared over on X from Jack and Daxter there very fittingly. Travis Howell, the animator at Sanzaru Games from 2018 to 2026, saying a while back a team was assembled to pitch a remaster of Jak and Daxter. I was asked to animate an in-game cutscene shot for shot to show what this updated version would look like. That wasn't commissioned by Sony as a fan-pitched game permission. The idea here is, hey, we gotta pitch this to Sony. Let's at least make something to visualize this for them. You know, it's not, Sony didn't say, hey, remake this or remaster this. Apparently they went back and forth in their post whether there's a remaster or a remake, but essentially, you got to at least show Sony something, show some initiative even, if you want to get this approved and greenlit, and then Sony gets behind you on the project. Unfortunately, it seems that Sony turned this one down, but you know what? I kind of feel like now more than ever, a Jak and Daxter remake, or like one of those remaster remakes, you know, where you can't really tell which one it is. But I think them at least putting forth an effort to reintroduce Jak and Daxter would actually make a lot of sense for Sony right now. So currently, the big push is screen time, yes, but also working to get the younger generation on board for your ecosystem, your brand, what have you. And right now, Sony, their big push is Astrobot. And it's worked well. Like, the kids are very, very excited about Astrobot. Like, we'll play the game together. They really enjoyed the updates that were happening, especially the Christmas time ones. It was a lot of fun. I do think something like Jak and Daxter would work. I mean, I've showed them Jak and Daxter, how we have that already through like the PlayStation Plus stuff, and they enjoyed it, but they kind of see that it's an old game. You know, like, I would like to see that treatment done for Jak and Daxter, because I do think there's still some brand power to it. It's just, you have to make awareness to it all over again, because it is from a past generation, I mean, decades ago. Again, it's just old. So I think if they did something like this, it would be a worthwhile endeavor, because it probably wouldn't cost a lot of money. So you can kind of at least control the budget and the scope around something like this and just kind of see what happens. I know it's easy for me to say, and many others, because we're not running Sony, but it does seem like some kind of shift is happening within Sony right now. So when it comes to, like, remember we talked about Dark Outlaw Games? There was an entire stream that happened with Jason Blundell, who talked about the project in a very vague sense, because he's under NDA and stuff. Can't necessarily just, oh, this is what we're working on. Here was all the concept art and stuff and the idea. No, but in a roundabout way, he's like, no, it wasn't a live service game. And it seems like there was a shift in strategy behind the scenes at Sony. And I do think this fits in with Nishino kind of taking the reins a bit more. And yes, even focusing more so on the console, but also on Japan and stuff. So I think if you're shifting strategy a bit and you're looking for something to really shake things up, I mean, honestly, bringing back Jak and Daxter, even in a smaller role as like a remaster or a remake, and just seeing how the market reacts, I think now is a good time, or at least going into the PlayStation 6 generation, since this stuff takes time, a few years even, but if only there was a studio that was still around that was really good at remaking games, maybe somebody out there can point Sony in the right direction. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, have you bought more physical or digital games in the last year? Okay, 52% just say more digital games, 48% say more physical games. Wow. So here's the thing, if you're on PC, you're going to answer more digital games. You don't buy physical games anymore. It's interesting to see, though, that it is over 50% in favor of digital games. And I just think this is going to continue in that direction, especially where now pricing, like just outright, has become a consideration day one. Before it was like, oh, okay, yeah, the digital game sale that's happening right now, 75% off a bunch of games digitally. Yeah, the Steam sale, sure, I'll go ahead and pick that up. Now it's like day one. Don't want to save $10, maybe more, because now I don't have to drive out or even time, to get this thing. I'll probably just go ahead and download it and save a couple dollars that way. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from NinjaSec, who says, yeah, brother, renting was how we played most of our games. Couldn't afford to buy too many. Maybe it's one of the reasons I collect now. It's funny, I was having a conversation with someone the other day about the idea of, are there any rental stores still around? So, I'm like Googling, looking around, and you find the last Blockbuster that's like far away from me. But I said, man, what if there was somebody who just had infinite money and could just go ahead and bankroll it without any care in the world for it? actually making money, just as an experiment, would people come out to rental stores now, not only just for games, but for movies, DVDs, Blu-rays, that kind of the blockbuster experience like we used to have back in the day? Is there a market for that at all? Like, would people kind of look at it as, it's a fun nostalgic thing and would go out once maybe and never come back? Or would people legitimately go, yeah, you know what, it's a Friday, I'm gonna swing by and see what new movies are out, or maybe I'll rent a game, and it kind of makes a fun experience and it becomes more of like a weekly or monthly thing for you going forward. It's just, some things come back around, you know, it's cyclical. Could a rental store do that? I'm not really going to find out myself by opening one, but I'm curious if it happens. Let me know if there's one in your area and if it actually gets business and has been there for a while. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here on a card. Or maybe you want to hear about how Fortnite has been faltering a bit, and that's bringing up a lot of concerns around the future right now of live service titles. I did a video on that, and I'll leave it right below. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.